manner, by the way.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. This is Kama with the online talk show Kama Speaks, and today my guest is Malaika Brown. We will be talking about mental health and the church, one of the issues that is so taboo in the church, and I'm so glad to have her. She had a post on Facebook not too long ago when Robin Williams committed suicide, and she made a comment and made me think, you know what, this is something we don't talk about in the churches. We don't talk about mental health. We don't talk about depression. So she will be here to enlighten us and let us know more information on that. And also, is it necessary for Christians to get counseling? So those are some questions that has been kind of flowing in my circle. So those are some questions that will be answered. So thank you so much, Malaika, for being on my show. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, before we get into it, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
I am actually a bishop's daughter, so I've grown up in the church for over 30 years of my life, so I understand the church aspect. I myself have been a youth leader. I have worked with youth and young people. I'm also an ordained evangelist with the Pentecostal Assemblies of the World, so I have the religious part. I understand the spiritual side as well. But one of the things that I have actually seen over my time in the church, especially working with young people, is that the word is not that it's not enough, but sometimes they need some more practical things, some coping skills, some life survival tools that they don't always get from being in church, because a lot of them grow up in the church, but they still have struggles. And a lot of them are everyday practical things. So that actually sparked my idea to change my major in college. I was going to go to school for theological-based studies, and I changed my major to psychology. And so I'm actually at the end of my doctorate and my PhD in clinical psychology. My goal is to, when I finish this program, to get licensed so I do see patients. And I actually get to do testing on people and do different things like that. I'm also an adjunct psychology professor, so I get to see the struggles of people at various times. And a lot of times being a teacher, the therapy kind of crosses into being a teacher. So I get to see it from all sides, not just in the church, but also out in the secular world. And there is a taboo issue when it comes to therapy and counseling in the church. And I'm going to have to say the black church because, okay. Yeah, I'm going to say the black church because I know the black church and I know our struggles, and I know that other cultures and other churches don't have the same issues with traditional mainstream methods of counseling and therapy as we have. And so that's why I was here, because obviously, as you said, with Robin Williams, that sparked the conversation again. He was a big person, a big personality that people endeared to, and it kind of brought that conversation back to the forefront. So I think it's something that we really do need to talk about.
Yeah, I'm coming to mind just thinking about what happened, and what drew me to you was because you said, you know, you didn't want to get into the Christian side of it because we knew that it was going to turn, you knew it was going to turn into something different. Right. And I've been in church myself. I've been in the church just as well, a little over 30 years, and you don't hear about mental health. So let's start there. Let's start with understanding what is mental health. Yeah.
Go ahead, finish that.
No, that's what I want to know. What is mental health?
Your mental health is just a different component of your wellness. It's no different than we look at our physical health. Mental health deals with our mental and our emotional side being in its best optimal state. It's obvious that we're never going to have a life where we don't experience things, go through troubles, go through heartache, go through loss, go through things that upset us. That's part of life. How you deal with those and how to cope with that is what allows you to be mentally healthy. You need to have tools and resources that are given to you to support you in the times when you don't have the skills to make it through whatever situation you're going through. A lot of times we look at it that faith is tested or your faith is weak if you go to see a therapist, and to me the things don't go together, because we don't, you know, put a person down for going to the doctor if they've been diagnosed with cancer, or if they have diabetes, or if they have high blood pressure. We would never tell a person, you know, stop taking your medication for high blood pressure, because if you take it, that shows you don't have faith. I think it's just something with the idea of the mind, because that kind of encompasses our spirit in a way. It's part of who we are and our spiritual nature. And I think those things are so intertwined that it's almost like the church wants a monopoly on that. This is our thing.
Yes.
Get what I'm saying? It's our thing. You're crossing over into our territory. And I think it's a territorial thing. And I think they have to realize that they actually work together in
Now,
part.
Now, what is your thought on when we hear mental health? We always think of demonic. That means you are, it's the spirits. I remember someone committed suicide, and I posted on Facebook out of my ignorance, and that I will say out of my ignorance. I was like, I don't understand why people do that, and that's their fault, and why should I feel sorry for them? And then someone else said something that's not in the church and was like, people just don't understand. They always say it's spiritual. I mean, it's demonic, and they really don't understand. But I kind of have to check myself, because this was just taught behavior. It wasn't anything but taught behavior, being in the church, not just going to church, but being in the church and surrounded by so much. All I know is that it's just a demonic behavior, and if you just get saved, the Lord is going to deliver you, and you're never going to deal with this again. What is your take on that?
I think sometimes we spiritualize things that are not always spiritual per se. I think eventually it can affect our spiritual well-being if something lingers too long. But sometimes the way we feel is a normal emotion. If you lose a loved one, sadness is a normal emotion for loss. If you get a divorce, even if you are glad to leave the person, the emotions you feel sometimes are normal. It's normal to grieve, the relationship. It's normal to grieve the person that you lost. It becomes a problem and falls in the line of depression and a mental health issue when that lingers and you haven't effectively dealt with those emotions, which is the reason why a mental health professional is important, is because they can help guide you through the process, because sometimes you just need the tools to learn how to deal with particular things. It's no different than, say, a person in the church finds out that they have high blood pressure. They may go to their doctor who wants to give them medication, but then they may ask the doctor, well, what other things can I do besides the medicine to fix this? So there's not just one way to treat something. The doctor may say, well, you can change your eating habits, you can exercise, and if you do those things in conjunction with coming to see me, watching your levels, making sure things are normal, then we could possibly fix this without you having to do medication. Mental health is the same thing. It's another way to approach some of these emotions that we use church to also approach. I think that the combination of the two is always effective, but sometimes church can also be a problem, because sometimes it can add to, and I hate to say it that way, but the structure of it sometimes doesn't allow the freedom that it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be freedom for you to come in and let God do the work, but a lot of times we as the people, we get in the way of what God's trying to do. We feel like it's us doing it, and that actually is oppressive to the people. So I think we have to look at it as another resource that we have. We will not have a problem with people going to marriage counseling. We've been doing marriage counseling in the Black church for forever. Yeah. Like, what's wrong with you? I won't marry you if you don't go to marriage counseling, right?
Right.
Same thing. If a person loses a loved one, I think part of the process that we help them through, besides the pastors helping them through planning a service and getting through burial and all of those things, they're really good at the business part of it, that part, but they don't help them with the emotional side.
Okay.
You're going to be sad. And some people may be sad longer than others. They just need to understand that they're in touch with what they feel and are not avoiding what they feel.
Yeah, you know what? And that brings me to think about just within the Black community. Let's not just say the church, not only in the church, but in the Black community. When we hear mental health, we automatically think you're crazy. We don't understand that it's the emotions that we deal with, because, again, my ignorance, mental health, I just thought something was mentally wrong with you and you're just crazy.
Right.
And it's like, how do we know unless we become educated on this issue? Now, are you finding the same?
Yes, and that was the reason why I actually started my foundation. My main goal, and the reason why I do the daily Facebook posts, is because I want people to be educated. I want them to see little things that could become bigger things. And so let's be aware of the small things now so that they don't grow into something bigger. Mm-hmm. And then let's look at some numbers. So, because people are like, well, maybe this is not as big a problem as we think it is. About 8% of our population in the United States suffers from some sort of depression, whether it's a depressive episode or going through a major depressive disorder or something of that nature. So that's like 16 to 17 million people in the country that suffer with this. Then it's also co-occurring with people that suffer from cancer, that are going through cancer treatment, people that have high blood pressure, people that have diabetes or some other kind of illness that they lifelong that they have to deal with. Depression is one of the things that goes with that because you're not who you want to be physically. It hinders you in some kind of way. You look at your mortality in a different way when you suffer with things of that nature. Think of people that suffer strokes or have heart attacks and they were vibrant and then now they have to recover and, you know, rehab from that process, how they feel emotionally not being themselves. So to just ignore this is detrimental, you know, as a community. And we have to learn how to remove the stigma. Every person that sees a therapist doesn't see a therapist because they're crazy or they have a disorder. A lot of times they see a therapist for basic stuff. They can go to see a therapist for career advice. People do this all the time. They have counselors that help them with everyday life stuff. They're thinking about getting married. They've been dating a person. They feel like maybe emotionally there's something not clicking, and they're trying to see, well, maybe it's me. Let's go back into my history, my life, you know, my life, my childhood, and see if there's something that's stopping me from loving this person that's a really great guy or a really great woman. Like, you can go for tune-ups before there's a major issue. And so my goal is actually to make it to where, just like we go for annual physicals, just like we go to the dentist every 6 months to have our teeth checked, mental health should be part of that process. Just go in maybe for one session and just sit down and talk to someone and say, I have had a big issue at work with a particular person. I wanted to see if I could talk to someone. Or I've had a lot of stress. My job was very demanding. I got this promotion. It was what I wanted, but then I got it. And I realized, you know, that it's affecting me. So putting that as part of your maintenance plan, basically, for your overall wellness, because you can't be whole if your mind is bogged down in some kind of way.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Again, that's just a whole different area that I know I didn't even think about getting checked for things like that, just for a career if you're going through. Me trying to go through my own depression it was hard. I didn't even know how to get out because I just figured God's just going to see me through. And even then it was hard because I didn't even know how to really seek him even in that, because it's just like, okay, you're going through this. What do I do? How do I ask the Lord to help me? I didn't even know what to do. Where sometimes I wouldn't pray. I didn't know what to do. And I had to dig myself out. But I realized, too, I needed to seek some help. And that I finally did, because there's a lot of things in my past that was holding me back, that's holding me back from my future. And I didn't realize it until I started going to see someone and seek counseling to say, okay, what's really going on?
Right.
And being in the church, with you growing up as a bishop's daughter, and then you got into the ministry early, because I know even just being a bishop's daughter, pastor's daughter, you automatically get that I need your help, because sometimes people can't get to bishop right away, or people can't get to first lady right away. Mm-hmm. What kind of mental wear and tear sometimes that you may have, or that you may have seen maybe your father go through or your mom go through during, with the church, and what kind of advice would you give, not only just going to your pastor, but maybe seeking professional, because they can't handle everything?
Right. I know from my personal experience looking at my dad actually had a stroke. I think it's been 7 years now, a major, massive stroke. And it totally altered his life. It altered the church. It altered our family dynamic. It was major. And a lot of it was because of how he constantly was in go mode. He didn't really have an off button. So he's constantly doing things to, bring in revenue for the ministry. He's doing different things to try to set it up so the church will be self-functioning, having funds come in. He's there for everyone else. He's counseling people. He's teaching Bible studies. He's preaching multiple services. He's traveling, working with the council and the national. He's doing all these different things, not taking the time to maintain and work with himself. So it wasn't just the fact that he physically wasn't doing the right thing. So he's not eating right, which was part of it. He wasn't getting enough rest. That was part of it. But then he also really didn't always have an outlet to deal with his emotional stuff that he carries, because he carried everything for people at the church. He carries everyone's burdens, everyone's weight. Mm-hmm. And you have to have someone that you can go to that will carry your weight. And, we kind of learned the hard way that we always think that our parents or our dads are supermen, they can handle everything because they did it for us. But the reality is they need someone to talk to too. And that's the reason why we're seeing so many stories of these pastors preaching services and then going home, and the weight is so much that they're actually committing suicide in their driveways after they just preached a message that uplifted all these people in their ministry. So you got to release those burdens. You got to be able to talk about those emotions. And it's no slight to your spiritual life. Has nothing to do with you not being spiritual, has nothing to do with you not being a person of faith. It's all about the fact that God has made us a certain way. There's certain components in us, and that's just our dynamic. We're made that way. We can't be isolated from one another. First of all, that's just our nature as people. We need to have the social interaction. We need to be able to express ourselves, relieve ourselves of those emotions. Sometimes it's just a minute of, I need to vent and talk to someone that's not going to judge me, that's not going to look at me funny because I said this. Let me get it out. I have my moment, right? And then you can move on from that. But when you never get the opportunity to have your moment, those moments start to pile up, and then it starts to become a problem. So I just say, as a pastor's daughter and seeing the responsibilities that my dad had and how it took a toll on him, that pastors need someone that they can go and talk to. They may never want to go talk to a counselor, just the stigma of counselor. They may never do that. But now more and more pastors are actually getting degrees in Christian counseling. So they're getting the tools academically to learn how to deal with the mind, the emotions, and the psyche, because you need skill to deal with that. You can't just haphazardly go into it, just like we wouldn't haphazardly deal with a person that was, demon possessed. You don't just let any person go in there to try to cast a demon out, right? You need people that are skilled in that. It's the same thing. Unlocking someone's mind and memories and emotions is a tricky thing. You don't want any person that's not skilled in that doing that particular thing.
Now, what are you doing now that you're in school, working towards your degree? How much time do you have? And then what are you doing are you in some kind of internship, or are you working in your field already? What are you doing to pursue that career?
I'm actually in my internship, so now I actually see patients part of the week, and then I'm teaching classes part of the week as well. That's, the patients don't pay because it's an internship, but the teaching is where I actually, make my living. And I'm actually learning skills from a psychologist that has been practicing for 30 plus years. So I'm learning from someone that's been in the field for a long period of time. They mentor you, which is part of the process. Even after I finish this program, I will still have a period of time of about a year or so where I'll still be mentored, because it helps us to learn how to best deal with the variety of people that you will have come in. And in the short time that I've been working with patients, I've seen a little bit of everything. I've seen, a person that has a severe attention deficit that is trying to just be able to get a job. Like, they're coming to get tested to see if there is something wrong with them clinically, just so they can get a regular job. Nothing out of the ordinary. They just want to work, and they have trouble. We've had people that have had some severe cognitive deficiencies to where they function at a much lower level academically than their age. So I've seen a little bit of everything. Then I've seen people come in that, they don't want their marriage. It's kind of like marriage tune-ups. They're coming in because they don't want it to be bad. So before it is bad, they want to be open and honest and have communication and learn skills to be able to work on their marriage as a process, instead of waiting till a problem comes and then addressing the problem. So this has actually allowed me to see things in a more than just textbook way, because prior to now, it's been pretty much textbook. But now I get to see the real life, and actually the teaching that I've been doing in the field has actually added a component. I've had students that have lost, loved ones that died unexpectedly during the semester, and having to help them through that, guide them through that, because they were great students, didn't want to give up. But I had to look at them as a person, not a student, and helping them through that process of, this is what I can do to support you so that you can be successful in being a person and grieving your loved one, but still not, derail yourself as a student. So the contact in this way has allowed me to see things in a much broader real life perspective.
And my last question to you is, we have Domestic Violence Month coming up, and I'll be doing quite a few interviews in regards to that, and some women that have actually been through that and survived that. What are your thoughts with the church not talking about this particular issue, especially with someone like me that's been through it? and I had to keep quiet because I couldn't dare let the church know that I was going through this. It was probably more embarrassing than anything.
Right.
So, what is something that you can tell someone that may be watching this later or watching this that's going through this, or they're afraid that they might have, the possibility of this person? How do they get out, or how do they uh, deal with this issue? Because this is coming more prevalent, as you can see with Ray Rice, and there's different people that are now coming out. Matter of fact, I just read something. A lady that was married to what's this guy's name? I'm gonna say my guy, but I didn't know he was beating on his wife. Mayweather's wife, ex-wife.
Mm-hmm.
She was getting abused. So I'm like, how do you do this to someone? But what are some things you can tell the audience about domestic violence?
One of the problems with the church is that we stress, about keeping marriages together because we frown on divorce. So a lot of times our focus is on the wrong thing. We'll focus on you forgiving them for cheating. We'll focus on you forgiving them, for doing a lot of different things because we want to keep the marriage whole, but we don't look at the two individuals that are in the marriage and making sure that they're whole and what's their best, what's best for them as individuals. Sometimes it may be better for them to separate. So when you're dealing with domestic violence, one of the biggest problems, a lot of times it's hidden for a long period of time. And it's hard for people in the church to believe, oh, brother such and such, or sister such and such, or minister such and such, or deacon such and such would be hitting on their wife, or vice versa. It could be hitting on your husband. It's not just, singular to men, users. And so we don't believe a lot of times that happens in the church, and we have to stop thinking that this stuff does not happen in the church. It does. Domestic violence happens in the church. There are abusers sitting in the pews. There are people that have AIDS sitting in the pews. This stuff is no longer what we could say part of the world, and no longer things that don't happen in our four walls. They're happening and have been happening for decades. So we got to get over that. It happens. I think one of the problem is the person that's being abused a lot of times doesn't know how to get off the roller coaster, because it really is a roller coaster.
Oh, yes.
You have hope that it's going to get better, and then they say the right thing, and you really don't want to leave it. You really want to believe that they're not this person, because that's not who you fell in love with. You really believe that. But the reality is there's some help that they need to get that's causing them to be that way, things that you may have never known when you got with them. And then there's help that you need to get, because there's some deficiencies as well with you that you need to address for yourself on why you're sitting there and taking that. It's a hard step to actually step outside of that. Even if you are being abused, it's hard.
Okay, and I know I said one more question, but I do have this question for you.
Okay.
Now, how are you dealing with this? Because when you're doing the counseling, I talk about how the pastors have to deal with it going home. What are some things that you're doing, because you're taking on other people's problems and spirits and just different things that they're dealing with, and then you have to come home and still be wife and still be mom and still have a peace of mind. And I know sometimes actually being in something and helping someone, sometimes it may not be as easy, because you're dealing with this from several different people, whereas I may just be dealing with me. You're dealing with people on a continuous basis. What are you doing to keep your mind healthy and keep yourself going, so that you're relaxing and things like that?
I think probably one of the greatest resources I have are my husband and my kids. My husband really is my best friend, so I can talk to him about anything. Obviously, I can't get into identifying particulars with the client, but if I see something that I needed to actually get out and express because it was kind of overwhelming for me, I know I can have that conversation with him, and he'll be there to listen and allow me to decompress. And then, having teenagers and they're girls and they're at an age where they're just fun and they're silly, so I like to kind of get engulfed in their little life, at 13 and 15 and the things that they're going through. And it kind of takes me and separates me from what I do from day to day and allows me to have fun. I love movies and television, so that's an escape for me. Things not related to reality, things that I know are far-fetched, allows me to come and step away from it. That's my outlet. I love reading, so that's another way to escape. So you just have to have what works for you, and definitely you need a support person. And then another component is, even as clinicians, we're required to have self-care. Our self-care actually requires us to actually go to therapy too. So we need to have regular maintenance where we see another professional to talk to them. And that's one of the things that they can't force you to do it, but it is one of the things that they kind of mandate that you do, because it's important that you be able to unload the stuff that you take on from other people by being in a clinical profession.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. Before I let you go, the website is here on the side, but why don't you give everyone your website information if they have any questions for you, how they can get in contact with you.
Okay, it's Your Beautiful Mind Incorporated is the name of the foundation, and the website is very easy. It's yourmindisbeautiful.com. We have a lot of useful resources there. So I have low cost to free mental health services in 3 counties on the website. So if you're in San Bernardino County, Riverside County, or Los Angeles County, there are some tools there for people that need to find or connect with a mental health professional. That's a starting point, and you can always email us and we can do some groundwork for you to help you get connected with someone. And then we just post different pieces of information that I think will be helpful. So yourmindisbeautiful.com is the website address.
All right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. For those that are watching, this is something that is much needed, something that's not talked about. It's okay to seek counseling. We need it. We need it. And us church folk, I'm going to say us church folk because I am one, we need to learn how to explore and find things out for ourselves. Even the Bible tells us to study to show ourselves approved. So we have to go back to us. We have to go look into us and find out what it is that God wants for us, and understand that some things are tradition, and other things are what God wants us to do. So we have to understand what the difference is. And I'm so glad that we were able to do this show, and Malaika will be back on our show with some more topics, because these are definitely some topics that needs to be discussed. And make sure if you have any questions, she said low cost to free, make sure you go to yourmindisbeautiful.com, and her information, of course, you should see it up. And if you want to get in contact with myself, you can go to kamaspeaks.com. You can email me if you have any questions, if you would like to be a guest on my show. If you need someone to come out and speak on domestic violence, on entrepreneurship, let me know. I am here. Malaika, are you doing any speaking or anything?
If anyone needs me, they can go to the website, send me an email through the webpage, or you can send it to Malaika Brown at yourmindisbeautiful.com. and let me know the information, and as long as it works on my schedule and I can work it, I will definitely come out and speak on whatever topic in mental health that you need me to speak on.
Perfect, perfect. All right, and again, keep watching. I will have some more great shows coming up. October is Domestic Violence Awareness as well as Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I will dedicate all my shows to my sister who passed away 2 years ago to breast cancer in November of 2012. So my whole entire month will be dedicated to her. So thank you all for watching, and remember, no matter what you do in life, always pursue your passion. Thank you for watching.